I think that's well said. It makes a lot of sense. And so, with the mention of deuterium, let's jump over to water. There's a lot of talk about deuterium depleted water. We had Gerald Pollack here, talks about the fourth phase of water and gel state water. Now there's these hydrogen electrolyzer water bottles that are getting popular. I've heard a lot of people talk about deuterium depleted water and its benefits. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about where to get it, how to have a steady supply of it, and if these hydrogen electrolyzers are the same, something adjacent that are beneficial. Obviously, we don't want to get our water pumped from the city through lead pipes, but how do
Well,
we
I mean,
get optimized
that's a
water?
totally different thing. Don't conflate the two issues. I'm going to tell you, if you want to talk about deuterium, you have to understand deuterium depleted water is another scam. And you need to understand where the scam came from. Gabor Somali, who's the guy that wrote the book Defeating Cancer, he's an oncologist in Hungary. You want to use deuterium depleted water in cancer therapy. Why? Because it turns out deuterium is not the toxin. In fact, our blood is loaded with 150 to 155 parts per million of deuterium. That's where it's supposed to be. But where it's not supposed to be in our body is in the matrix, where the TCA cycle spins. And it turns out when you have cancer, there's more deuterium there than anywhere else. And that's where deuterium depletion makes sense. So the people that took this message of Somalia specifically, and I don't want to call him one of his friends, but it was a biochemist from UCLA. He came up with this deuterium depleted center with a couple of other people he was working with. I think a chiropractor and someone else. They've made a huge business out of selling deuterium depleted water and selling people the story that everybody should deuterium deplete. That's not true. The only people that really need to deuterium deplete are people that have significant mitochondrial diseases like cancer. To Gabor Somali's credit, he's telling people the truth. Okay, his book is excellent on deuterium. The problem is the fractionation of deuterium to light hydrogen is really the key. For you to understand that, you have to understand that different parts of the cell have different amounts of deuterium in it. The place that we have zero tolerance for deuterium is actually in our matrix. That's where we don't want it. And it turns out in disease, we do get it. So the seed oil story, this is one of the things that the seed oil people don't understand. If you happen to be in strong solar environments, the amount of deuterium you eat is easily handled by the body. Turns out that's not true when you live, say, in Finland or at the poles and you're eating seed oils. That's when they're, toxic. But everybody's out there saying, you need to avoid all seed oils. This is one of those few times that BioLane may be right, when we talk about the seed oil story. Do I have a personal problem of people getting rid of seed oils in their life? No, because I think fundamentally the oils that are coming from plants that nature really never provided, without manufacturing, you don't get them. Therefore, I'd rather see people use, the natural fats like coconut, palm, and butter. That makes more sense because saturated fat is loaded with H plus and has very little deuterium in it. In terms of the waters now, I think when you use the water should be in consultation with a clinician that understands this. I will tell you, I don't think there's very many clinicians out there that do understand it. The only two people that I believe is myself and Gabor Somali. Why? Because I've heard him speak on it, and the way he speaks about it tells me he's very, very accurate, and he understands what the limits are of the use. And I think that's good because it should be measured. In terms of the machines that use hydrogen, I'm out on all of them. All the supplements that use hydrogen, I'm out. And I'll tell you the reason why. Not that I'm anti-hydrogen, because I love hydrogen. The problem is the quantitative analysis that's done when you make these filters or machines, they're not fractioning out deuterium compared to hydrogen. Why? If they did that, their machines would cost a lot more money, hundreds of thousands of dollars. The same thing is true about those molecular hydrogen tablets, that those tablets are made inside a lab. If you think that they're fractioning out deuterium and hydrogen, no, you're actually, in those tablets, my bet is you're getting deuterium bombs, meaning stuff that's probably got 150 to 155 parts in it, and then you're dropping it in the water, so your water is even higher. You're making it even worse. So you have to remember, guys on the internet make affiliate code stuff. And when they're making all that cash, look, they're going to tell you whatever the fuck you want to hear. And if you're stupid enough not to do your due diligence, then my opinion, as a decentralized clinician, you get what you deserve. It's as simple as that. See, nature has extinction events for that issue. And some people may think this is harsh when I say it, but look, this is the only way we're going to get people to actually start to think wisely. You have to understand that the way deuterium works in the hydrology cycle, deuterium is highest at the equator and lowest at the poles for one reason, because sunlight is strong at the equator and weak at the poles. So that means photosynthesis works the exact same way, that at equatorial regions, things like fruits are going to have higher deuterium levels in it, and things at the poles, meaning animals or walruses, things the Eskimos eat, things that are present there in cold environments, they're going to be mostly saturated fat, which is loaded with H plus and is deuterium depleted. Now, are there things that are in the equator that are also deuterium depleted? Yeah, it turns out coconut is one. Turns out eggs, like if you MRI a coconut or egg, you'll find out that it's very deuterium depleted. So nature does provide some of those things present in the environment. The flip side of that is, should you be eating food, because you mentioned this earlier when we were talking about the optical scanners, should you be eating food that, say, comes from Chile when you live in Boston? The answer is probably not. Why? Because you don't know what the electromagnetic barcode is. In fact, that food was grown in summer in the southern hemisphere, and you're eating it in winter in the northern hemisphere. Bad choice. But guess what? Most of the fruit that's in, American supermarkets right now in the northern hemisphere are coming from Guatemala. They're coming from Mexico. They're coming from places that, are not even Florida. And people don't realize that there's a biologic toll for all these things. I'm just that guy that understands the science well, that wants to point it out to you. I'm not trying to, force people to do things. I'm actually just trying to force people to ask better questions of the people that are packing their parachutes. Because if your expert doesn't know this level of sophistication, then they're not an expert. If they don't know that blue light raises your blood glucose and insulin, and you don't need a Twinkie to do it, then you should fire them. If they keep telling you, let's keep doing blood tests for a year, and you have an autoimmune condition and you spend $50,000 doing their functional medicine bullshit, and you're on 19 supplements and you still got the disease, fucking fire them. Because all it is a snake oil salesman.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And obviously we've deconstructed the gimmicky water things and what not to do, but what would you say is the way to biohack optimal water for everyday life? Do you set water in the sunlight? What are the layers to optimize our water that we do drink every day?
I think the most important thing is make sure that the water is clean, meaning that there's no man-made, lifetime chemicals in it, forever chemicals. I think it's better if the water comes directly out of the earth, like spring water would be good. You can easily test, spring water at most water municipalities, at least in the States. We can't do that here in El Salvador, but I've tested the water here, and the water is pretty clean here, which is good. In terms of the deuterium content, that's really based on the latitude. So if you do want to drink deuterium depleted water, just drink water from a higher latitude than normal. Like I tell people, if you don't want to spend the extra money on the deuterium depleted water, drink Evian, drink Pellegrino, drink Voss, drink Icelandic water. If you really want to do the deuterium depleted game, you can go on Amazon and buy Hydro Health water. It's easy to find. You may not get down to the parts per million that I would use for somebody, say, with a brain tumor, but you can do that way. And does deuterium depleted water help humans that, say, even live in Florida but live a shitty life, that have a poor lit environment? Remember the relationship that I told you before that's present on Earth, that deuterium depleted water is present at the poles where light is poor. Well, say if your life is lived in poor light, does it make some sense to add some deuterium depleted water? Maybe, so you wouldn't get, like Chris Mortensen, who just died from ESPN. He got laryngeal cancer really bad and suffered with it. What was his job for the last 25 years? working in a TV mecca and always on radio. He was always around EMF that would dehydrate him and kill him. I guarantee he didn't get the message about deuterium-depleted water from his oncologist. Okay? The same thing is true. Let's stay on the ESPN thing. You're probably old enough to remember Stuart Scott. He was also on ESPN. He also died of an eye cancer. Okay? Jimmy Valvano, who was the first guy that was the big basketball coach at North Carolina State and then went on ESPN. He also died early of colon cancer. What was his life like? Inside a gym that was blue lit and inside a TV studio. So if you live that kind of life and you realize that it's bad and you can't change it because your family needs to pay their mortgage, your house note, your car, this and that, but you know you need to change it, am I okay if you have extra money laying around and you want to drink deuterium depleted water? I don't have a problem with that. But I want to make sure that you know why you're doing it as the truth and that you really should perform an environmental hack in your life. In other words, reconstruct your life so that you're not living a zoo animal life inside, someone else's cage. Because ultimately, if you do it long enough, you're going to wind up in centralized healthcare, and you're going to be treated just like meat for a sausage. They're going to do to you what they believe to be true. And I think we covered that, with the Bill Gates Foundation, ophthalmology and dermatologists. They have fundamental flawed beliefs that are going to harm you. And the treatments, many of the treatments that you get are almost ass backwards. Why? Because the perspective of medical school curriculums don't take anything that we're talking about today into consideration. They're built around big pharma ideas.
Can you believe it, people? A video clip and a peek into how that sweet THC sausage is made. For some people, I'm sure it's nice to put a face to the name, so I started making clips that are a little more YouTube friendly than the full show tends to be. Get the full show on any podcasting platform. I prefer to keep it audio only, so we have a more decentralized distribution for a controversial show, and also so I can edit out the ums and ahs and barking dogs and all the things that happen when a person records in their home environment. And then if you really like the show, you can sign up for THC Plus, and instead of 1 hour interviews, you get the full 2 hour interview for just $8. I think that's a better deal, more of a win-win than asking you to support the show by booking a therapy session or buying generic Viagra. It's getting weird out there, folks. So just go to the highersidechats.com or click the link at the top of any set of show notes, and all your wildest dreams will come true. All right? All right.